What's up, y'all? Welcome to The Break, a weekly video newsletter where I provide stories and actionable insights on breaking work and building the future that you want. If you like what you've been reading, follow along with me on Twitter. I'm at MNGarden, or on LinkedIn, you can find me by searching Michael Garden. So this week, we're going to be talking about how your biases prevent you from taking the risks that you need to take. First, a real big thanks to our sponsors for helping me bring this newsletter to you absolutely free. I've talked about ZipRecruiter a whole bunch. If you're looking for a new job or looking to hire in 2023, start with ZipRecruiter today. Find the best opportunities and candidates out there. I'm proud to partner with this award-winning company to bring you this newsletter absolutely free. Next is I get a lot of questions about interview tips from readers. They want me to talk about interview tips. So I threw together a really quick guide. It's called the Break Interview and Personal Branding Guide. It's got everything I know about interviewing. It's got over 130 pages of interview Q&A, and it's a really cheap option to get everything I know about interviewing. It's only $35. You get $15 off for newsletter subscribers. Check it out today. And then finally, it is wedding season. If you're looking for a great gift, support my kids' side hustle quote book. You can check it out and get 15% off by using the code THEBREAK at www.quotebookjournal.com. All right, so today at a glance, we're going to talk about how your biases affect risk, the top biases to be aware of for better risk taking, tactics for overcoming these biases, and the top questions to ask to take better risks. So we all dream of making a big change, and we wonder how others do it. At the heart of making any change is this battle in our minds between belief and fear. Having some fear is healthy, but too much paralyzes us. Having too much belief can lead us to make really big mistakes. So we need to be in balance. And the key to this balance is seeing risk clearly and objectively, and then putting it in its place. We can't escape risk, but we can become comfortable with it. And our biases affect how we view risk. So here are the top biases that tend to skew our reality of risk. Number one is optimism versus pessimism bias. So we all skew one way or another. I was born more of a pessimist. It's easier for me to see what might go wrong, and that makes it harder for me to see the upside in things. If you know your bias, you can take steps to check it before you make a decision. If you're a pessimist, you might overestimate the likelihood of a negative outcome while underestimating the probability of positive events. This can make people less confident in their decisions and lead them to not take proper risks. I believe most people skew towards pessimism, not necessarily because of an attitude, but because more people are able to see the downsides than the upsides. If you're an optimist, on the other hand, you might overstate the likelihood of positive outcomes while underestimating the probability of negative events. And it can make people overly confident in their decisions and lead them to ignore potential risks. Second is loss aversion bias. So I think this kind of underpins the whole optimist-pessimist thing. Loss aversion bias causes individuals to be more sensitive to potential losses than to gains. When evaluating risks, people tend to be overly cautious to avoid losses, even if the potential gains outweigh the risks. Studies, for instance, have shown people will avoid losing $10 much more than they will try to gain the same amount of money, the $10. I believe this stems from that pessimistic slant. We can clearly see the downsides, but we have a hard time imagining the upsides. And the third bias is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias involves seeking out information that supports our pre-existing beliefs and then discounting or ignoring data that contradicts those beliefs. This bias can lead to selective attention to information, hindering a comprehensive and unbiased assessment of risk. So how do you overcome these biases when evaluating a risk? Here's what I've been doing. So number one is an exercise called fear setting. Author Tim Ferriss uses this tool when analyzing any change he wants to make to his life. All you have to do is think about what are the worst things that could possibly happen from making that change. You just list them out. And then you ask yourself if you can live with those outcomes. Number two, ask the question, is it true? So knowing your biases above, for each of the worst things that you listed out in fear setting, Ask how true that really is. This is really enlightening because if you're a pessimist, you might imagine yourself homeless, living in a van if you leave your job. But that's probably not true as the worst case scenario. If you're an optimist, you might not be drilling deep enough into the worst case scenario, and you might need to think about something that even worse that could go wrong just so you have a proper perspective. Then you just update and adjust based on your biases. Third strategy is to find a counterbalance. So if you're biased in a certain way, try to find someone you trust who is biased in the opposite way to balance out and check your thinking. So one of my best friends always sees the upside. I always see the downside. We invest together and we make great partners because we balance each other out. We see past our blind spots together, and we've made a really good way of working together and being cordial and checking our thinking without offending the other. Number 4, mitigate. So if your risk of change is still too high, you need to scenario plan on how to reduce that risk. My study of investing masters reveals several risk mitigation strategies that we can apply to our career decisions. I will detail them all in a future post, but here are a few strategies. Use options, i.e., have a few different ways of attacking that change. Number 2 is size your bet. Is there a way that you could do something to make this change smaller and baby step into it? Number 3 is diversify. Can you do 2 things at once? An example would be freelancing while you free up time to work on your real side hustle or your business. Number 4, remove other risks to make room for a big risk in your career. An example would be pay down a lot of your personal debt before you take your leap. And number 5, stay close to your circle of competence. We talk about this a lot, right? Make a change, but understand how you have an advantage in making that change. Instead of making a complete 180-degree change into a completely unknown field, take a baby step out of your comfort zone and leverage some of your advantages into your new area. So there's 5 key questions, or there's a bunch of questions, but 5 key ones that really help me uncover my potential biases when I've done this risk evaluation. So number 1, am I overlooking potential negative outcomes? Assess whether you're overly optimistic about the potential success of a decision and whether you have adequately considered the risks and downsides. 2, are my decisions driven by fear of losses? Evaluate whether you're making risk-averse decisions solely to avoid losses rather than objectively weighing potential gains. Number 3, am I seeking information that confirms my initial beliefs? Reflect on whether you are selectively seeking information that aligns with your pre-existing belief and whether you have explored alternative viewpoints. 4, have I engaged diverse perspectives? Consider if you have sought input from individuals with diverse backgrounds, diverse from your particular point of view, and expertise to gain a broader understanding of potential risks. And 5, is it true? What can I do about it? Imagine the worst case scenario and ask if that fear-inducing scenario is actually true. And then, what can you or should you do about it? By asking these key questions and implementing the strategies mentioned earlier, you can enhance the objectivity and accuracy of your risk evaluations, leading to better decision-making outcomes. When you do this, you start to see that you have way more ways of influencing and reducing risks to an acceptable level, which will help you take more informed, calculated risks to break some rules and find more fulfillment through your work. To go even deeper, I suggest creating a map of your advantages and think about how you can use those advantages to influence your luck and influence your risks. If you respond to this email with the word advantage, I'll send you my free advantage mapping template for absolutely free. Here's to breaking your old habits and becoming the best version of yourself. We will see you next week.